Hey everybody, it's me, Roger Aladdin Daltrey, and I'm doing now the fifth class of my graduation. So let's just get cracking in. This class I'm doing today is actually has a tutor who is one of the most important tutors and teachers in the school, and has also attended all basically the first five graduations that we've had. You know, the first three before my one, and then my one being in the fourth, and then now a few days ago being the fifth. So let's get cracking in, shall we? So as you already know, the title of this performance today, it is this class. Let's get into it. This is Behan today. So it's named after the famous poet Brendan Behan. And to be honest with you, I know nothing about Brendan Behan. I don't know anything about all those poets, but I know the last one I do know a lot about the poet. So anyway, let's get cracking in. And in fact, Behan was the first class to be called out for the graduation, because obviously they do the classes in alphabetical order, but for me, I went by very important person, you know, by going from least important to most important. And the reason why I picked this one as second is because since I want to keep my class to the very end. So anyway, let's get cracking in. So the first student up in Behan was Chloe Bobrick Lynch, and she was voiced by Annie Lennox from Eurythmics. And there's nobody for Dave Stewart yet, and I think Dave Stewart did appear in the video to the Bob Dylan song When Night Comes Falling from the Sky, and it comes off the Empire Burlesque album. I like that version a lot, but I much prefer the bootleg series version much more because it's more rockier, and also Bob Dylan's voice in that, because Bob Dylan's voice in the 80s is just magnificent, and his voice everywhere is brilliant, even though people say they can't sing, but he's an amazing singer by far. That's why, as I said before, he's one of my big music heroes. Up there with Paul Stanley from Kiss, Phil Collins from Genesis, Booker T. Jones from Booker T. and the MGs, David Bowie, Davy Jones from the Monkees, Paul Williams from the Temptations, and I forget who the other one is. Oh yeah, and then, of course, that guy. And how could I forget? That guy from the cartoons, Aladdin, because again, Aladdin is the man, and also that guy second from the left, whatever the heck his name is. But anyway, so there's no one for Dave Stewart yet, and I think he produced the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers record, Southern Accents. I think. Hold on, I actually have the album here. I'll just get it out and have a look. Yeah, well, some of the tracks are produced by Dave Stewart. I'll just zoom in for you so you can have a look. It's a bit hard to see with the sun, but you can see it anyway. And maybe pause the video if you need to. Right. Anyway, so the next student up is Maria Carr, who was voiced by Ashley Roberts in the Pussycat Dolls, and then Esmeralda from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And in fact, the Esmeralda character from the Hunchback of Notre Dame states that I'm actually her hero. Anyway, the next student up is Adam Colgan, who, as I said before, was one of my absolute closest friends ever, and he was voiced by Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. And it was a bit funny because I actually met him in Super Valley the other day. I think it was Sunday, or was it Saturday? It was definitely during the weekend. Next student up is Colm Dowling, and he was voiced by Rick Wakeman from Yes. Rick Wakeman is definitely one of my favourite keyboard players of all time. Maybe one of my biggest keyboard heroes. Up there with Tony Banks from Genesis. And maybe Ray Manzarek from The Doors. And there's a couple of other good keyboard players as well. Maybe Roy Bittan from Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. And probably Dan Federici as well. But I don't know. But I know Tony Banks is my number one keyboard player. Or maybe the keyboard player from Aladdin's band, because again, Aladdin is the man. Jeez, Booker T. Jones, he's keyboard player as well, so I'd say him, Rick Wakeman and Tony Banks are my three favourite keyboard players. Right, next student up is Adam Dunn, and he was voiced by Brad Whitford from Aerosmith. Then we got Amara Azizi, who was voiced by Mary Wilson from the Supremes, and she went straight to fifth year as well. Then we got Gavin Fisher, who was voiced by Richard Manuel from the band. Then we got Matthew Keane, who was voiced by Paul McGuigan from Oasis. We got Ronan Keogh, who was voiced by Tin Lizzy drummer Brian Downey. Even though I stated before I'd given up on Tin Lizzy because of you know what I said about giving up on Tin Lizzy. But again, it doesn't mean I don't love some of their music. And I technically like the songs that aren't played on the radio, like maybe Opium Trail or something like that. Right. Next tuned up is James Kerwin, and he was voiced by Mick Thompson from Slipknot. Then we got Dylan Knight Sands, who was voiced by Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. We got Liam Leonard, who was voiced by Robbie Robertson from the band. Then we got Sarah McGrath, who was voiced by she was voiced by Sheryl Crow, who does a great cover of the Bob Dylan song Mississippi from the incredible Love and Theft album. And Mississippi is absolutely one of my favourite Bob Dylan songs ever. And it is just a glorious, magnificent tune. I do like all the outtake versions as well, like which were recorded during Time Out of Mind. Muchly the ones on Telltale Signs Disc 1 and Disc 2. The Disc 3 version is okay. But anyways. Then Sheryl Crow also does Real Gone, which is the first song in the original Cars movie. And then it's not to be confused by Cheryl Cole either, because sometimes words can be can rhyme, but they can also be spelled different. But anyway, next tuned up is Eve McMenemy, who incidentally is David McMenemy's sister, and she was voiced by Kim Carnes, who is known for the hit "Bet Davis Eyes," which I think is a really nice song, and it's very magical and glorious. And then we have one of my best friends ever, Tyke Moore, who is voiced by that guy who's on the far right, whatever the heck his name is, who also has the role of Shrek, the best bass player of all time. Because again, Shrek is the man on the bass. That's why he's one of my biggest bass player heroes, up there with Mike Rutherford of Genesis, especially in the early years, before Steve Hackett left. Maybe Chris Squire from Yes, Duck Don from Booker T and the MGs, and Sting. Anyway, and also Gene Simmons from Kiss. Then we have Olivia Mullen, who was voiced by Victoria Beckham from the Spice Girls. And because she's now friends with the girl group, there isn't a princess for her, but there could be one for her anyway, who knows. But again, if you just want a character, this is just for the girls now, if you want a character, don't take Jasmine, because I'm saving her for someone special. Anyway, then we got Jamie Murs, who was voiced by Alan White from Oasis, not to be confused with Alan White from Yes, because already that's who Sean Leahy is. But anyway, we're almost done. Next up is Justin Basagi. He was voiced by Chris Fenn from Slipknot. And then we got Clodagh Reed, who was voiced by Jessie Nelson from Little Mix. Now for her as Reed, it's not spelled the way how Lou Reed is spelled. It's basically read as in to read a book. Whereas with Lou Reed, it's R-E-E-D. Because that's the thing, the problem I have with people's names is that they have the same name but spelled completely differently. And that's what Michael McIntyre actually said, that it was really bugging him, but it was only for a joke. Like, for example, Sarah with a H is pronounced Sarah, but without a H is pronounced Sarah. And Sarah is also a song titled by Bob Dylan from Desire, which was about his wife Sarah. And then there's also Sarah from Fleetwood Mac. And then there's Sarah from Tin Lizzy. Oh, damn it. Why did I have to mention Tin Lizzy? They suck. But to be honest with you, I do kind of think it is one of their better songs from Black Rose, a Rock Legend, and I don't like the version on Shades of Blue Orphanage since I'm not a fan of that album. Like, I am not a fan of any Tin Lizzy album because they suck. But anyways, and then we're down to the last two students. We have Mark Stell, who was voiced by Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, and he was a major close friend of mine. And then the final student in Behan is Aoife Walsh, who is voiced by Nicola Roberts from Girls Aloud, and then of course Snow White for her character as well. So anyway, that's it now for the Behan class, and I have to admit, and again I'm going to give you the same message, it's just crazy to think it's been a year now since I had last been with you guys. But anyway, so that is that. And then, a special mention to Owen McSherry, who was voiced by Benjamin Orr from The Cars, who went straight to the Institute as well. So anyway, I'll see you next time for the final class that owned them all, which is my class, Boland. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.